Hello everyone. Last time on Sevtech, I completed my space journey by reaching Neptune and acquiring prosperity shards, allowing me to make a ton of mystical agriculture plants as well as find my power generation solution for the rest of the run. Speaking of the rest of the run, we still have some grinds to check off our list before we coast to the end. I took the liberty of off-camera going to get a couple cocoa beans, so now it's time I guess I should just set up a little farm for this stuff. Almost as if by instinct. Yes, I used to play Hypixel Skyblock, how could you tell? I've already got almost enough, which is actually kind of crazy to me, because I don't even have the machine set up yet. We're gonna chuck all this stuff into a drawer and start mashing it then. Yeah, so there's an upgraded setup here, because I wanted to be efficient with my time. So we have over here 4 millstones. We're just gonna have this down, and then throw on this and this. Alright, there we go. This setup is incredibly scuffed, but it should work well enough. Now, I've said this quite a bit, almost as a joke, but I really am kind of tired of this mod pack, and I really do want to move on to something else. Because at this point, it's more about just finishing the pack than enjoying myself while doing it, and this essentially has just become a visual and audio depiction of the sunk cost fallacy. Anyways, our next step is going to be making the mixer. And I'm guessing that I don't have a lot of modularium left over. Okay, I might have enough. Gonna need manual blocks for this, so I'm gonna have to take out of my little reserve here. Since the power input is in the back, I'm gonna go ahead and throw it on right here. After that, we put the fluid input, and item output. And other than that, we just go ahead and we fill in all the other blocks. And on top, and then manual in all the corners. Of course, the structure's wrong. I need to put a cauldron in the middle. And there, it's just turned gray. Okay, perfect. Anyways, we're going to need lots of milk and a good way to store it, which means that we're going to be making these fluid tanks. We can make a large one with 500 buckets. We'll be upgrading it to huge with biotite and purpur, and that's 4,000 buckets of storage. Now, I need 2,500 buckets of milk, which is definitely one way to do things. Now, in any regular mod pack, there'd probably be some easy way to farm, like, gigantic amounts of milk, and there probably is in Sevtech, but I'm so absolutely past actually playing this pack that I'm going to manually milk 5,000 buckets. Alright, there's all of that milk I needed. 2,508 buckets. Felt like I was playing Skyblock there for a minute. Well, I mean, I say minute, it was more like half an hour. Anyways, let's just throw that on there. Now what I need is an equal parts sugar and cocoa powder. Somehow ran out of sugar cane, so I'm going to pick up all my nature essence that I have stored up, and we're going to make all that stuff real quick. And now we are making chocolate in industrious quantities. Now that everything's producing at a normal rate, I'm going to occasionally refill all of this, but for the time being, we're going to start working on the next one, which is salt, which means we're going to be taking up our thermal evaporation plant, and we're going to be moving it. Only thing we're missing at this point is a chemical crystallizer. Luckily, these things are incredibly cheap, and we already have everything we need for it. Go ahead and put it down over here. Right now that everything is hooked up to the power, we've got the water being turned into brine inside of the evaporation plant a little faster than I can produce water. And then that gets turned into gaseous brine, and the gaseous brine gets turned into salt over here. Now we have salt. Gonna go ahead and chuck a couple upgrades at this thing, just to make sure it's running at an optimal speed. Alright, this should be more than enough to make 20,000 salt for the time being. Alright, paperclip time. Time to make a paperclip factory, and what the hell is this thing? So actually looking at it, it's much less big of a task than I first expected. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna dismantle all of the old modular machines and see what we can salvage. In true setback fashion, I need a cauldron and I need to cook it in a kiln. Because in order to make one of the components I need, I require nether bricks. And if anyone has been watching the series for a while and remembers the blast furnace, nether bricks are not fun to make. The only good news to come out of this is the fact that I already had hellfire dust and potash left over, so that was a fairly easy way to skip some of this. No, I genuinely did not miss doing this stuff, like, at all. Alright, that's all 4 bricks I need. Here's to hoping I don't need any more. And now we just sit here and we wait for all of these blocks to be empowered, and then we can get to work on the machine. That's all 4 empowered blocks. Now it's time to make some scaffold. Alright, with all these scaffolds and the Restonia crystal blocks, we can now assemble more parts of the machine. All that we're missing now is gearboxes, which we're going to take a bit of cobalt essence in order to make. Alright, we have our gearboxes, we have our pistons, we have our conveyor belts, and we have our scaffolds. Let's get this thing built. Then insert our blueprint. Structure found. paperclip factory. Look at that, and it turned red and everything. Now, if we chuck a bunch of meteoric iron into here, the recipe will be processed, and out will come 8 paperclips. I'm gonna need a lot of meteoric iron for this, and I don't have enough blocks of the stuff. Actually, I just remembered, didn't I make the floor out of the stuff? Yeah, so I'm perfectly fine with ripping the floor out from underneath all of the garden cloches if it means I get to finish the pack. So anyways, that is yet another singularity dealt with. And now, since the Steve's Carts one is entirely about waiting, that leaves us with the Death Compass singularity. Been AFK for so long that my Nether Star generators are all empty, so we're gonna have to go ahead and do a quick refill on all of these. I've devised a plan to make the mob farm, and that is going to require quite a large amount of HDP sheets because I'm going to need a lot of machines that require frames. On top of that, I'm going to make a couple repeaters because I'm also going to need advanced wafers from over here, and also throw in some diamonds. Now this thing's going to run. I don't know, is this connected to the main base's power? I think it is because the main base is connected through the farm, so all of these machines technically should still run. Yeah, we're going to need our wafers, and we're also going to need quite a few more machine blocks. But at least we'll be able to have our first machine. We're going to have to move all this stuff as well, considering that I'm going to need it once again. We're just going to use black concrete for this. I also had another idea. I'm going to make experience seeds and see how this goes, but I mean, we'll have to see if these things are like fast enough to support the mob farm. But if they aren't, there is still the contingency plan of melting down gas tiers, which is the plan as well. Let's stop stalling and go ahead and make our first frame. And that's our machine case. You know what? I'm going to put up the other blocks just so that they're not in my inventory. There we go. So we're going to have this weird little statue until we have enough light gray plastic blocks. So what we're going to need next is reinforced metal. This is made from melting stabilized metal, which we can get by selling stuff, but also just by crafting it with these things. Now that I think of it, it might be a little just cheaper to make an Amadron tablet. Well, make an Amadron tablet. We already have one. Use our tablet and sell off something that we already have tons of, which is kerosene here. Now, stabilized metal does need to be refined, so what we're going to do is we're going to refine 1 stack of it. The way you refine it is by chucking it into a smeltery and then recasting it, because it turns into reinforced metal when you do. I did notice there is clay, blood, and ender pearl inside of the spawner. I think something happened out here. Alright, with the reinforced metal done, let's see if we can craft it straight up. Yes, we can. Now, the mob duplicator is kind of special in that it requires essence, which is kind of difficult to obtain because you can't make it normally. You need to get liquid XP and then convert it in a fluid dictionary converter, which is where the second machine casing here comes from. And that's why I need all of this extra HDPE. But I don't expect to make any other machines than these, so it's going to be the last of what we need. But while we're waiting for all this HDPE to be done, I need to mention that I spent quite a while AFK, and basically all of the chocolate as well as all of the paper clips are now done crafting. Okay, this is actually kind of revolutionary. So if I get an XP drain tank and I stand on top of it, it drains XP that I have, and I can use the experience seeds, which are not visible, and just give myself tons of XP because I can make droplets out of the essence, and I can just eat the droplets for raw XP. But I think it's fair to say that by the time that the Death Compass factory is ready, I'll have enough experience essence to keep it running for quite some time. The last thing to do on the checklist before our HDPE is done is make this mob masher thing. It's going to be a pretty expensive recipe, so I'm going to have to take out of my iron essence supply. Our essences, of which we are now at 16,000 essences, aka almost there for most of them, and 10% of the way for some of them. And for this, we are going to need, we're going to need quite a bit of iron swords and iron spikes. We need a lot of these iron swords. I feel like the amount required is kind of understated. All right, we still don't have enough, but that's what the plates here that are being crafted are for. And then from there, I need sharpness upgrades. So I'm gonna need another 40 swords, which we have 20 of. And while we're waiting, we can go ahead and make all of our luck upgrades. I accidentally made 14. Okay. And what about smite? I think we can afford 10 smite upgrades, can we? Yes, we can. All right, we have enough plastic. That means that the Death Compass farm is going to be very close to completion. All right, crafting's done. We now have our machine case, and it's time to craft our fluid dictionary converter. All right, it's time to figure this thing out. Make a little cobblestone structure. I'm going to throw all the machines over here. So if I want the mob duplicator, I'm on vein mode. I want my mob duplicator in the middle, and it'll spawn mobs on top. If I put a mob masher on top of it, I don't know if this will work. I'm gonna do, actually, go ahead and make a vector plate here so that I can move the mobs around. I'm going to put it on top like this, and then have the mob masher here. I'm going to have it pointing the area, though, and then close the rest of this so that it can spawn stuff. And then we're going to grab the absorption hopper, put our drain tank here, and then our converter here. We can throw our... because the hopper's got a really big range. We're gonna have it offset so it only contains this area and it only vacuums stuff from this area. But what I'm gonna do, if I move the tank over here, then I'm gonna have pipes like this, and then they're both gonna go into here, and that's gonna fill up with experience. And then I'm gonna convert that into essence, and then pipe that into spawner here. Now I'm gonna need energy and the mob itself. Okay, hold on. I completely forgot the mob imprisonment. Let's go ahead, let's go out, and let's find a human mob. So no doubt you've probably seen during the videos me getting attacked by zombies that have player skins and player names. That is exactly who we're after. Question is, am I gonna find one of these guys? And I got comboed into my wires again. Alright, the sun is coming up. I think I gotta find one of these mobs. Usually they are, like, lurking around under my base because it's always dark there. But I guess this time they're just not spawning. Wait, no, I think I see one. Aha! You, my friend. I will be cloning you. I hope this guy is gonna enjoy the cycle of life and death 10,000 times. Alright, let's chuck in the mob imprisonment tool. And now we just gotta hook this up to the power, which should not be too hard. So the player mob spawns. Oh, I completely forgot the mob masher isn't on. So the experience does in fact get captured. Drops are being captured, but I'm not seeing any death compasses drop. Oh wait, I forgot to include the sharpness and looting. Aha, much better. And the death compass is stacked. Oh, that's perfect. Anyways, this absolute work of art is our death compass machine. Now the next issue is the XP, which I probably don't have enough of to make 20,000 death compasses, considering we've already burned through most of our previous supply and we're left with 4 compasses. Now, if we connect up these drawers, all of the appropriate items should be shipped in eventually. And then we're going to hook up a trash can to the end to get rid of all the other drop. Yeah, if we put a trash void at the end, it'll get rid of all the armor, all of the spider drops, and all the stuff that doesn't. Now, after all of this, there remains one more thing that we can do, and that is craft ultimate ingots. So we're going to need 4 of these to finish the game, which means we are going to need 4 of every main ingot in the game. So for the first few, it's going to be pretty easy. We're just going to make a bunch of everything and then see what we're missing afterwards to make a quick little checklist out of. Out of all of our essences, we were able to get these metals in, and now we got to work on the list for all the next ones. There's redstone alloy, and there's our modularium. Somehow I was missing iron. Somehow I also need 4 TNT. Of all the things for me to need, HOP graphite ingots are one of the weird ones. Got some Invar lying around, so we'll throw that in. Alright, the HOP graphite is done. I also almost forgot to put in the black iron. Now we gotta assemble all the materials that we're gonna need for soul steel, because somehow we still have to make that. But we have our refined obsidian, well as our refined glowstone, which comes and sits next to the pin. Alright, next one's the Sermerite and Octine, which we have Octine, we just don't have the Sermerite. I'm gonna have to go and check my old Between Lands chests for this stuff. Okay, luckily we have a few Sermerite nuggets. I don't think it's gonna be enough though. Yeah, we don't have enough. We're gonna have to go ahead and pay a quick visit to the Between Lands, as well as the Nether, to pick up some other materials that we're missing. Just a little bit of Sermerite. Shouldn't be that hard to find. Wow, this place is dark. I have expected my soul steel to be done by now, but I realized that the redstone timer wasn't actually running at the right rate, so this was not cooking like at all. Well, at least we've got our Sermerite. Next thing is going to be me popping over to the Nether to get some soulstone for solium. About 100 of the stuff should be plenty. Thing I almost forgot is reinforced metal. Now, hopefully my soul steel is done by now. Yes, it is. There's soul steel. Next thing we need is all 3 types of ender alloy. A couple ender pearls and purple blocks later, we've got our 3 tiers of ender alloy. Next up, we're going to grab some steel leaf. Next thing we need is night slime, which is going to be a little more complicated. Realistically, this should be all I need. I just need some pipes. Okay, realistically, this should be all I need. I can just configure the pipe output, put in a whole bucket of water, throw in 2 pieces of wheat, and I don't have power connected. Let's go ahead and do that real quick. There we we go with the quill going. Now we can spin up all this stuff, turn all of this water into slime. Go in here, we melt the grout, melt the iron, and then dump in our liquid purple slime and let all of that melt together. We should have some night slime. Now our very last set of metals is the Galgadorian metals, which, as the name suggests, requires a bunch of Eyes of Galgador to craft. Alright, let's ship all of these materials into the arc furnace and watch it go. Meanwhile, the smeltery should have a fair amount of night slime. Yes, exactly 4 ingots. That is exactly how much we need. Night slime goes in, and now we're getting much, much closer to the end here. Our next metal that we need is pig iron, which means I'm going to be spending a little bit of time inside of the smeltery, if you know what I mean. There we go. We now have a block of pig iron in the smeltery, and that's 4 ingots of pig iron. Anyways, dropping this off, we now have our pig iron. All the while I've been smelting that soul dust so that we can make some solium, or solium ingots. We can now fill the slot in. Alright, we now have 40 lumps of Galgador, which we are going to turn into 4 large lumps and 4 small lumps. And then these are all going into the smeltery. That's 4 ingots of enhanced Galgadorian metal, 4 ingots of Galgadorian metal. And so by slotting these in, there are only 7 ingots remaining. And these 7 ingots that are missing are the essence ingots. Each one of these is going to cost me 4 prosperity shards to craft, because the base essence ingot needs to be crafted into the inferium ingot. Luckily, I don't need any more to make the higher tier ones, but I'm still going to need 1 ingot per, which means that if you multiply 7 by 4, I'm going to need 28 more prosperity shards, which we currently do not have the means to produce, but we also have quite a few left over. So we're going to be turning this setup back on once again. We're going to be producing as much as we can with what we have, and if we can't make all of what we need, then it's going to be off back to Jupiter and back to Neptune to gather more ores. And now let's craft our essence ingots. Yeah, we put in our Insanium essence and get our last 4 ingots, which means that now we could realistically just shift click and craft 4 ultimate ingots. And so at this point, it's time to ask ourselves, what's next? Nothing. Nothing is next. As much as I could just sit here and AFK for hundreds upon hundreds of hours to eventually summon the final boss and get the OJ that lets me finish the pack, I don't want to. I have been playing Sevtech for the better part of the last 4 months, and I'm tired. Sevtech isn't a mod pack made for you to cruise through the main objectives at all. And it sucks that it took this long to realize that. And with all this, what I'm trying to say, in many words what could only be said in few, I'm done with Sevtech. I consider this mod pack to be completed. I've created all of the automation necessary to reach the end, and it is only a question of time. Time which I don't intend to spend. And thus rises the question of what's next? What are you going to upload next week? And that is a surprise, but I do have a video for next week. And I have a video for the week after that, and then another after that. But I'm still open to suggestions. And so let me know if you'd like to see a video of some random game. Hopefully one that I've never played before. And I'll try and entertain you guys as best as possible. Once more, I may look into streaming again, but there's no guarantees to be made here. And so with all that being said, I'd like to thank you all for watching my Sevtech series. And I'll see you next time.